All right, so it's officially the off season. There's not that much really to do. Whenever it comes to content creation, this is kind of the gray area where it's like, what am I supposed to do between now and next month when training camp begins? So we're going to take a look back at the Titans' past. We're going to talk about positional battles, just like a bunch of other stuff to do. And again, if y'all have any suggestions for stuff for me to do, let me know in the comments section. But anyway, we got to get into this. So what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and in today's episode, you probably already know by the title, we're going to be asking the question of, was firing Mike Vrabel a mistake, or did the Titans make the right decision here? What's my opinion? Well, I'm not going to say. You got to wait until the end of the video, obviously, or episode if you're listening over podcasting. So, first off, before we get into the Mike Vrabel stuff, I want to mention something just small real quick. People noticed that Gunnar Helm was the first Titan at tight end, or not the first Titan ever, but like the only Titan at tight end university. No Chig, no Wiley, no whoever other tight ends we have. I can't remember. There's one more, but I can't remember who it is. But none of those guys. It was Gunnar Helm at tight end university. Honestly, this is probably a good sign for Gunnar Helm because it shows that he's willing to improve, but also shows that he's got respect amongst other tight ends in the NFL. So that was just a good sign for me, at least whenever it comes to Gunnar Helm. So anyway, let's get into what you're actually here for, because there are going to be some people here that I know are not Titans fans and probably didn't even care about what I just said. So before we ask the question of was firing Mike Vrabel a mistake, we need to go back to the year of 2018. The Titans are just coming off of a playoff win under Mike Mularkey, and we're not too sure what the direction of the franchise is. We feel like that Mularkey has done some good things. I mean, for goodness sakes, he won us a playoff game. But we also feel like maybe there's another head coach that can get us somewhere better. So this year we fire Mularkey after a very funny report from Ian Rappaport, where he said that he was about to get this massive extension, which was a very funny prank by Mike Mularkey that probably almost cost Rappaport his job, but we don't need to worry about that. So after that, it was really only in between 2 or 3 candidates, but everybody mostly knew who the head coach of the Tennessee Titans was going to be. That was Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was the defensive coordinator for the Texans, coached around a little bit before that, but he wasn't really the best defensive coordinator. I mean, if he is going to be a coach in the NFL, he is more suited for the head coaching position than he is just to be another assistant coach, to me at least. But not spreading that opinion right now. So here we go. We're going into the first year of Vrabel. Expectations are decently high because Titans fans are thinking in their heads, okay, we fired Mularkey, who got us a playoff win. So we're expecting a big jump in production with Vrabel. Maybe he gets us 1 or 2 more wins this year, gets us back to the playoffs, and maybe we actually make a run. Here's what happened, okay? Now, I won't blame this year on Vrabel, obviously, because this is first off, it's year 1, okay? No matter who you are, your first year of head coaching is probably going to be the most difficult year because you're either going into a rebuilding roster or you just haven't done it before. Year 1 of 2018, the team goes 9-7. He inherited a pretty good roster. Again, like Mularkey was fired because it felt like he was underperforming with the roster that he was given. So that's why Vrabel was hired to take that roster to the next level. So he inherited a pretty good roster, but they barely missed the playoffs. And people are always curious, wait, hold on. If Vrabel was supposed to be the next stepping point, how on earth did he not get them to the playoffs whenever the dude the year before won them a playoff game? 2 words, Blaine Gabbert. Yeah, having Blaine Gabbert as your starting quarterback didn't do any favors, mostly just because of the fact that Mariota got hurt and they really couldn't do anything else at the quarterback position. There wasn't like some veteran quarterback that they could have gotten off of waivers. Like Blaine Gabbert was their only option. He stunk it up, as you probably expected, threw one of the worst interceptions that I've seen as a Titans fan. And obviously, hearing that from a Titans fan, that means a lot. But Blaine Gabbert throws the game against the Colts. We missed the playoffs. But honestly, not a bad year one for Vrabel, okay? If Mariota stays healthy this year, they most likely make the playoffs, and who knows what happens after that. So, first year, not terrible. More to be desired, though. All right, year 2, 2019. This is whenever things get interesting. The team goes 9-7 again, but you got to take this into context. They started out 2-4, so that means that for the rest of the year, they went. Let me run the numbers real quick. Yeah, 7-2, I believe. No, 7-3 for the rest of the year. That's ironic. You'll see why earlier. But anyway, so Tannehill, this is the first year that he takes over as the starting quarterback, and this is year 1 of Arthur Smith for those who are curious about the offensive coordinator position, which is probably pretty important for this episode. So Ryan Tannehill takes over, rallies the team around him, picks up some really impressive wins like the one against the Chiefs, barely keeping us out of overtime, and then another win against the Chargers, which took a lot of grit to end up winning. So just again, like some really impressive wins this year, but we just barely sneak into the playoffs, and we play the Patriots dynasty in the Patriots dynasty last year with Tom Brady. And whenever we think expectations were low, expectations were pretty low. We were just happy to be in the playoffs. Shows some decent things about the Vrabel era thus far, and we were just interested to see what we could do against the Patriots. I want to give some context. Whenever we made the playoffs the year with Malarkey and we got to the divisional round against the Patriots, we lost in like an absolute blowout. Like, it was not a good game for the Titans, but we ended up going into this year and we won an absolute nail biter against the New England Patriots, getting a pick 6 right at the end of the game, and the Tennessee Titans were moving on to the divisional round against the Ravens. Now, we were excited about this win against the Patriots because it showed, okay, our head coach is capable of winning a playoff game. That's a good thing. But our last head coach was. But we're just happy to be here. Let's go get our tails kicked by the Ravens, get out of the playoffs, and just have some hope for next year. Little did people know what was coming. Lamar Jackson plays absolutely terrible against the Titans defense. Titans defense, though, giving them credit, they played really well in this game. This was MVP Lamar Jackson, so it was a very impressive hold by the Titans defense. Tannehill plays a good game. Derrick Henry, as always, is just shows again and again why he was considered the king of running backs in football at this time. Like, just a really solid performance by Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, and just the entire team overall. We beat down on the Ravens, and we advanced to the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs. This was the second really big year that Mahomes had. So we go into this game and we're thinking, oh man, we got nothing to lose now. We could win this game. We could go to the Super Bowl, and who knows what happens in that game. We're just one game away. And then due to some things that happened that I will get into during other details later on in this episode, the Titans get absolutely crushed in this game. Mahomes makes one of the best scrambles that he may have had in his entire NFL career, and the Titans get absolutely crushed by the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. One of the worst memories that you can have as a Titans fan. But again, people were happy. There was a lot more to be desired. This was year 1 of A.J. Brown, showing why he could be one of the best receivers in the league. Ryan Tannehill rallying, maybe he could actually carry that into next year and the rest of his career. Derrick Henry, and the defense just looked really solid. Just overall, really, really good progress for this Titans team. People were excited to see what happened next year. So we go into year 3. Year 3, we go 11-5. We win the AFC South title, and we are, again, by far the best team in the AFC South. And there was a little thing going on this year. I'm not too sure if y'all have heard about it. It was like this niche disease. It was called COVID-19. Yeah, obviously this being the pandemic year, it was a little weird because I really hate this season, mostly just because, well, first off, it's the most amount of play. It's the most amount of, the Titans had the most amount of COVID cases throughout the first few weeks of the season. And it was just terrible for the Titans. And obviously this was a terrible time for the world. But something that really upset me personally was that I felt like that our I felt like that we could have had like a rockin' stadium that year, one of the better home field advantages in the NFL, and that may have carried on even into today where we really aren't that good. But instead of that, we got the COVID year where you could barely even see half of the stadium filled up, if that. So again, obviously terrible year for obvious reasons, but again, still, we had some really good positives this year. This was the best offensive year by far in the Vrabel era because the plan was just get the ball to A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry and don't let anybody else do anything. That was basically what it was, which is shocking whenever our offensive coordinator was Arthur Smith, who for some reason would gain this random obsession to use random scrubs off the practice squad to be used as targets and just randomly have good years because of that. And he kind of did that last year and even a little bit this year, but A.J. Brown was still the main focus of the offense. So anyway, Ryan Tannehill had his best year by far this year. He had like 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,800 yards. People were thinking of him as a dark horse for the MVP, which obviously was a little bit too far, considering the fact that Aaron Rodgers was having one of the best years of his career. And even then, Ryan Tannehill wasn't the best Titan on his roster. And that was obviously Derrick Henry, who ran for 2,000 yards this year, almost broke the rushing record, won Offensive Player of the Year, and truly cemented himself as the king of the running back position in the NFL. So, people are probably wondering, how did this result in the playoffs? Well, we went to the playoffs and we were doing a rematch against the Ravens. And I feel like that the thought process here was, oh, we beat them in the regular season. We beat them in the divisional round. We own the Ravens. We should be just fine. But I forgot to mention something. This defense was genuinely one of the worst that we have seen as Titans fans, not just in the Vrabel era, but just in the entirety of our history. Like, absolutely awful defense. If we had 2019 or even 2021's defense this year, I think that we would have been Super Bowl contenders, but that defense held us back so terribly. Combine that with the fact that Tannehill choked in this game, foreshadowing for more to come, and this team never stood a chance. We lose to the Ravens in the wild card round. I remember my brother being absolutely heartbroken that day, and just overall, man, disappointing season, but still solid season. Arthur Smith becomes the only OC that was truly like, I don't know how to describe this, but like, not like Matt LaFleur, who was an offensive coordinator, but then came over to Tennessee and then got a head coaching job. He was the first homemade offensive coordinator in the Vrabel era to get a job, head coaching at least. And the only one, as you'll see later on in this episode. So again, overall, solid year. Wish that we could have gotten a little bit more out of it. But again, not too much to complain about. Had to flip the sheet over. Okay, year 4, 2021. This is whenever I truly started following the Titans. Like, I was starting to get into it in like 2019, 2020. But this is the year where I really just kind of delved in. I was all in on the Titans. They were my favorite team in sports, and I was just always excited to go watch them on Sundays, whether it was at the stadium or just sitting at home with the family and watching their games. So this was the best year of the Vrabel era by far, in my opinion. 2019 is really close, though. And again, I have personal bias, mostly just because, again, first year that I kept up with the Titans, but we got the 1 seed without Derrick Henry. This is Vrabel's best accomplishment as our head coach, in my opinion, at least. Getting a team that was so injured without Derrick Henry, with a ragtag group around Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown, and getting that team to get a 1 seed. That is the best coaching job that Vrabel did. And this is the reason why people think that he's an elite head coach. I think I may have just spoiled the ending, but we're just going to keep on going. So, again, no Derrick Henry, and really, really good year. Defense makes a huge jump due to a Harold Landry breakout season. Big Jeff, again, I haven't mentioned him that much in this video, but still being just that solid force that he usually is. And just overall, a pretty solid team. Secondary was questionable, but even then they came up big in some games, like 49ers on Thursday Night Football football. They came in huge in that game. And if it wasn't for that Jackrabbit Jenkins interception at the end of the game, I don't think we end up winning that. And again, some very impressive wins over the Bills, Chiefs, really impressive win over the Chiefs, and a lot of other teams that I can't think of right now, but just a really solid season. Now, there were obviously some embarrassing losses whenever it comes to what was happening with this team being such a ragtag group in some places. Like, we got destroyed by the Patriots. We lost to the Texans with Tyrod Taylor. And if you follow my Twitter, go follow Titans Rundown. If you follow my Twitter, you know that the only person to catch a touchdown in this game was Dez Fitzpatrick, who's probably going to be a trivia answer in a few years for this Titans receiver caught only one touchdown pass in his career against the Houston Texans in 2021. Or this Titans wide receiver was drafted before Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 2021 NFL draft. That's what people are going to remember him for, not for anything else. Anyway, rant aside, just like, again, some embarrassing losses, but really good year. And this looked like this could be the year that the Tennessee Titans finally take the step forward and become the Super Bowl champions and finally get some national recognition. You see, there's one thing I'm forgetting to mention. Todd Downing is the worst thing that could have happened to this roster. If we keep Arthur Smith, or we have just any other offensive coordinator. Heck, even if we had the offensive coordinator that we hired the next year, I'm not going to spoil you, but if we would have even hired that offensive coordinator to be our guy, this season may turn out completely different in my opinion. His play calling took the wind in the ship. Like, it took all of that out during the divisional round game. We lose in the divisional to the Bengals off of a Tannehill disaster class, throwing 3 interceptions. Derrick Henry not being back to full form, but still getting most of the snaps, whenever the reality is we should have given most of those to Dante Foreman, who was having a pretty good day, but also had been probably the more safe running back to go with because, again, recovering from an injury, Derrick Henry was obviously not at his best in this game. Anybody that watched it could tell. So, anyway, Todd Downing destroyed this team, in my opinion. Things look completely different today if Todd Downing isn't hired as the offensive coordinator. I 100% believe that. This was a really good year. Really fun year. I really enjoyed watching every single game. It was a treasure to watch every single game, except for the times that it wasn't. But there was a lot more to be desired. We thought that we could have won the Super Bowl this year. There are some people that think that. Some people think we're crazy. I think that's 100% true. So anyway, we go into year 5, and I think I need to address this elephant in the room. I thought about mentioning this earlier, but it's obvious that I need to mention it now. A.J. Brown was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles during this offseason for Treylon Burks and a pick that we would end up trading up with to go get Malik Willis. So this year, it looked really strong at first, right? After some hiccups with the Giants and... who was the other team? The Giants and the Bills. Absolutely terrible game against the Bills, by the way. After some hiccups there, we pick up a little bit of momentum, lose Tannehill for about a week, but he comes back and we end up but he comes back after a week. I'm sure that won't have any bearing on the rest of this season. And Malik Willis was terrible against the Chiefs, but we held our own and almost beat the Chiefs in that game. And you probably have a wild guess of why we ended up losing that game. And if you know, you know. So anyway, golly, this season is so frustrating because it looked so strong at first. We were 7-3. At the 7-3 mark, we just beat the Packers on Thursday Night Football whenever it looked like they were starting to get a little bit more stuff going. But then the end of the year was one of the worst endings of a year that I have seen as a football fan. We end the year 0-7, go 7-10, miss the playoffs, and this isn't the full story. Ryan Tannehill got hurt, and that completely derailed this season. Look, you can think whatever you want to of Tannehill as a quarterback. But there is no denying that if it was him playing out there over Malik Willis for the 2 weeks that we had out there, we probably beat the Chiefs with Ryan Tannehill. You think that's ridiculous, but trust me, he would have at least managed the offense better than Malik Willis did. And against the Texans that second time, we would have beat the Texans that second time if we had Ryan Tannehill playing in that game. That's already 2 wins. And if we would have had those 2 wins, then that automatically would have meant that we were in the playoffs because tiebreakers with the Jags and whatnot. So anyway, moving on. The biggest thing to blame this year, for me at least, is Todd Downing and Dennis Daly. Again, Todd Downing, terrible play calling. You could see it week after week after week after week. Just him just crapping the bed with his play calls. And he had good play design, but he couldn't call a play for the life of him. And Dennis Daly, potentially one of the worst offensive linemen that the Titans have ever seen. Absolutely terrible. Sounds more like a television show name than an actual football player. So again, really bad. So this year can be summarized as the beginning of the end. Had some really good moments right at the beginning, but just really fell off the rails at the end, which would be a hint for the future of the Tennessee Titans. We go into year 6, 2023. I had optimism for this year. We had just signed DeAndre Hopkins. We had a pretty good draft class, even though I was still upset about the Levis pick. Again, if you look at my first episode that I ever made on this, it'll say that I liked Levis. But in reality, if you ask any of my friends, you can see that when I was actually at like some type of party that night with my class, and whenever they told me, oh yeah, the Titans trade up to draft Will Levis, I lost my mind. Like, I was not a fan of that at all from the beginning. But anyway, side rants aside, pretty good draft. We finally got rid of Todd Downing as our head coach, and things were looking up. We thought that we were finally going to break that mold and end up being something decent. Yeah, no, that was not the correct assessment. This was a Frankenstein of a season for the Titans, right? Like, last year, there were even though it was pretty bad overall, there were at least some fun moments, like whenever we beat the Texans, or whenever we almost looked like we were going to make a comeback on the Colts, or whenever it looked like that we were gearing up to be or whenever it looked like we were gearing up to do a Jag-style comeback, and Will Levis was looking decent, and we had just beaten the Texans, the Patriots, and held our own against the Chargers and the Vikings. Like, things were looking up during that period of time. But this year just really didn't have anything. Apart from the Monday Night Football game and the Will Levis 4-touchdown game, it was just a painful season to sit through. Nowhere near good enough to make the playoffs. Nowhere near bad enough to potentially have hope that we could go get a Jaden Daniels or a Caleb Williams in the draft. Just terrible. Absolutely terrible. This was the end of the Tannehill era. He got hurt during the game against the Baltimore Ravens, and after that, we gave a shot to Malik Willis. That didn't pan out well. We gave the shot to Will Levis, who threw 4 touchdowns, and that changed the course of Titans history, in my opinion. If Will Levis doesn't have that 4-touchdown game, you take that out of the equation and have the one moment on Monday Night Football, and the rest of his season, he's probably not remembered as well for that 2023 season. People probably forget about him after 1 year, and the Titans are ready to move on to a quarterback like a J.J. McCarthy or a Bo Nix, something like that. Like, that's probably what ends up happening if Will Levis never has that 4-touchdown game. But anyway, this was the year that Vrabel was fired. Beginning of the end for the Tennessee Titans, and any chance that they had at winning a Super Bowl at this point was completely dead under the radar. So, before I get into my final verdict, I want to get into some extra details. First off, I know that I give Vrabel a lot of crap in this, so I got to give some other reasons that this team wasn't really that great during this period of time. First off, John Robinson. Let go of Jack Conklin and A.J. Brown, 2 absolute pillars for that Titans offense, and probably one of the reasons that it was a good offense in general. And we let go of those 2 guys. And then, like, who did we sign on? Like, Jadeveon Clowney, Vic Beasley. Like, he let go of the wrong people, and he signed on the people that he wanted to. It's kind of like the Herbert Hoover presidency. He made all of the wrong decisions, even though there were probably going to be some bad times coming on. He made all of the wrong decisions just to make things 10 times worse than they needed to be. That is what this was, in my opinion, at least. So after that, terrible drafts. Again, like, this is something mostly to blame on John Robinson during the second half of his tenure, but people try and completely, like, clear this off as, like, Vrabel had nothing to do with these terrible drafts, but, like, are y'all sure that Vrabel didn't have at least a little bit of influence over some of the people that they picked? Like, I'm not saying that they had, like, even influence over who they picked or Vrabel had more influence, but I'm just saying, like, it's not like Vrabel had no influence and just watched helplessly as John Robinson drafted all of these terrible players, right? Like, he could have probably intervened and been like, hey, look, I really don't like this Treylon Burks kid. I really don't like this Isaiah Wilson kid. I especially do not like this. I especially do not like this Malik Willis kid. Like, he could have intrigued on those and could have been like, hey, look, this is something else. This is a different direction that I want to take this in, right? Like, again, mostly on Robinson, but I don't think people give Vrabel enough credit for this. So anyway, bad staff hires after the first wave of coaches. Like, we hired on Matt LaFleur and Dean Pease. Those were good hires, really solid. Then we hired Arthur Smith after we hired Matt LaFleur, which again, solid hire. But after that, it went completely downhill. Okay, remember whenever I said earlier in the episode that due to some things that happened during the AFC Championship game, we got crushed? Yeah, this is something that I'm talking about. Dean Pease getting pushed out of town is one of the most disgraceful things that Vrabel did as head coach. Specifically, how he interrupted one of his meetings to give some minor complaint, which, is fine. And then he just randomly, but then Vrabel comes back, bursts into the room out of nowhere, and starts telling the defensive players what's what. Like, that was a terrible moment for Vrabel, and that's one of the stories that never gets talked about with this era of Titans football. Then, another thing is that he takes play calling duties away from him on the defensive side, away during the second half of the Chiefs game, after we had gone up 17-7, and completely just destroys any chance that we had. Because here's the thing, like I said earlier in this episode, Vrabel is not a play caller. He is a head coach who can manage a team or a side of the ball. He's not meant to be somebody that calls plays or is this, like, insane defensive mastermind. He's a motivator. That's what he is. And then after that, obviously, you've already heard my hate for Todd Downing, at least as a coach. I've heard he's a great guy, but anyway. Tim Kelly was just meh, not really anything too special to talk about. And then Shane Bowen, I thought that he was another meh guy, but then I saw what he did in New York, and I was just like, oh, he's just bad. So anyway, those are my extra details. So now we're going to talk about my overall thoughts. Was it a mistake to fire Mike Vrabel? I don't know how to approach this. I think that Vrabel is a very good head coach who can, what's the words I'm looking for? Who can steer the ship to a really good football team, but I don't think is the best at developing a young football team. So that means that even though Vrabel was still a good head coach and will probably do good things in New England, I think it was time to move on. We were trying to go into a different era, and Vrabel just really did not fit the picture whenever it came to the future of the Tennessee Titans. And again, I could be completely wrong. Vrabel may go on to the Patriots with Drake May and win like 5 Super Bowls, and this video becomes completely irrelevant. Callahan ends up being terrible, and the Titans keep on falling while Vrabel just keeps on getting better, right? That could 100% happen. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Vrabel is going to do a really good job in New England. He's going to have some really good seasons, but then by the end of the tenure, you're going to realize that he's going to do the exact same thing that he did with the Titans, trick everybody into thinking that he was doing a really good job, and then slowly go on the decline after that. That's just my personal opinion. May not happen. May end up being that he's great. I mean, he has Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator, and nobody's going to be trying to hire him away to go be their head coach anytime soon. So there is a good chance that it ends up being better than it was in Tennessee. But I think that it was for the better that the Titans fired Mike Vrabel. But anyway, I want to hear what you guys think. Do y'all think that it was a mistake firing Vrabel? Or do y'all think, like me, where it was like, it felt like it was more so time to move on, and if Callahan does end up being a disaster, it was more so that we fumbled the hiring than it was a mistake to fire Mike Vrabel. I just want to hear y'all's thoughts on this. That's it for today's episode. I have Instagram and Twitter under the Titans Rundown, and for podcast listeners, I have a YouTube channel under the Titans Rundown as well. So again, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.